Part 28. The Liu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yoon. Chapter 271. Chapter 271. People's hearts are separated from each other's belly. If you really can't do it, don't participate in any programs, or don't go on stage with him. Loses who paused on the stairs for a moment. Then tell me why can't you be on the show with him? He is very dangerous, do you understand? Loses who turned around and looked at her steadily. No, I think he is very nice. And he only sleeps in class. What dangers can a person who is usually taciturn pose? Jongwon asked. How long have we been together? 10, more than 10 years. Jongwon thought for a long time but couldn't think of an accurate number. Then how long have you known him? Less than a week. Do you think you know me? No, I don't fully understand. Jongwon replied quietly. Yes, you don't know me very well after we have been together for more than 10 years, let alone someone who has only been together for less than a week. Jongwon, you are too naive. Do you know him? Jongwon asked, grasping the key point. She always felt that Loses who knew Jiao Ran, and she had a very bad impression. I don't know it, I've only heard of it. Loses who said. But he is just a new student, just like me. Where did you hear about him? Is he so famous? In the past, all the news in school was about him, and it was agitated and fermented for a long time. Loses who looked forward as if he was recalling something. Before? Isn't he a new student? How come things about him were spread before? Jongwon's face was full of doubts, and she felt that her brain was not strong enough. He is not a new student, he has repeated a grade. Ah! What did he do to repeat the grade? Can you tell me? Jongwon looked forward to it. Loses who sighed and entered the room, followed by Jongwon. Down below, Xiaolan finished heating the meal but the two people were nowhere to be seen. She stood stupidly in the living room and looked around, thinking where were they? Enter the room, Loses who sat at the end of the bed, and Jongwon sat on the carpet, holding her chin, ready to listen to the story. Because he knows Latin, when he first came to school, he represented the school in various activities and won many awards. There was another boy who also represented the school in many activities, but he never won an award, even if he was lucky once in a while. It's also the lowest award. From that time on, many people compared the two of them, and the boy was disparaged. Later, the boy thought that Jiao Ran must have a backing, but he never knew how hard Jiao Ran worked, so he hated Jiao Ran. The heart rises. One day he followed Jiao Ran with his men and broke one of his legs to a place with few people. If someone hadn't discovered it in time, Jiao Ran might have lost his life. Later, his life was saved, but his right leg became disadvantageous. Asked, didn't you notice it for so long? No. Jongwon shook his head in horror. Because Jiao Ran never talked to her, she rarely observed him. No wonder he never participated in physical education classes. Loses who shook his head and continued, he used to be a lively person, but after that incident he became like this. After recovering from his injury, he repeated the grade and restudy, and he never appeared on the stage again because he had practiced for a long time. My legs will hurt. Then why does he want to go on stage with me? Jongwon was puzzled. He has a desire for revenge. As long as he sees someone who can dance, regardless of whether he is a boy or a girl, he will take revenge. There have been people in the school who have been retaliated by him before, but that boy is not a big deal. Even if he knows he just made his family lose some money, and then there was no further investigation. Huh? So scary? I thought he was fine. Jongwon looked incredulous. I'm telling you this because I want to tell you that no one can trust you unconditionally, let alone someone you've only known each other for a few days. End of this chapter. The Liu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yoon. Chapter 272. Chapter 272 The wedding banquet is designated for you. I'm afraid he will do something bad to you, Loses who said. Then what should I do now? If I refuse him directly, he will become suspicious, right? I don't think the teacher will agree to him taking the stage. You don't need to tell him more. I'll go find the teacher tomorrow and change your position. Jongwanan nodded quickly. Asterisk next day. Loses who took Jongwanan to the junior high school. Jongwanan felt uneasy along the way. She was so nervous that she didn't know where to put her hands. In the end, she got her schoolbag strap caught with her hands. You go back to the classroom first, and I'll tell the teacher that I'll find you later, Loses who patted her shoulder. Jongwanan felt that Loses who's pat made her feel a little more at ease. She looked up at Loses who and asked, "Can you pat me again? I'm scared, afraid that he will break my leg." Loses who smiled and rubbed her head. "Go in, what are you afraid of? He hasn't witnessed you dancing yet? It's okay. Yeah, he doesn't know how well he dances yet, so he shouldn't have any revenge on her, right? What's more, they are still sitting at the same table. You can't be so heartless." Despite this thought to comfort herself, Jongwanan was still too timid. Once she entered the classroom, she didn't dare to return to her seat. She directly drove Sujiao's deskmate away and sat down there. "What's wrong? Are you in a panic?" Sujiao looked at her and asked. Jongwanan hugged her arm and tried to feel more at ease, but she realized that Sujiao was not Loses who, and she was still afraid no matter how tight she hugged him. "Someone wants to harm me," Jongwanan said this. "Huh, have you watched too many TV series again?" Sujiao's first reaction was that someone had watched too much TV again. "No," Jongwanan said and hugged Sujiao tightly. Sujiao felt baffled, but she still comforted her patiently and said domineeringly, "As long as I'm here to protect you, let's see who dares to do anything to you. Hichayu, come here to protect you." Hichayu was indeed obedient. After Sujiao gave the order, he ran over and sat in the back row. He craned his neck to look at Jongwanan's closed eyes and frowning brows, and then looked at Sujiao's serious look and couldn't help but ask, break up. We split up. I asked you to me. I'm not asking you to talk nonsense." Sujiao slapped him violently. "We haven't broken up. That's good. I thought I wouldn't be able to eat your wedding candies." Hichayu murmured to himself. Sujiao and Jongwanan. The other side. Loses who stood in front of the old man with a solemn expression, but did not speak. "What's wrong? Why did you come to see me, an old man? Did you miss me?" the head teacher asked jokingly. "No. What is that? I want you to help adjust a seat for Jongwanan in your class. She is not suitable to sit with her current deskmate. There is also a show where she can only perform alone, and no one else needs to play with her. Why is this? Tell me the reason, and what's the relationship between you?" The old man rubbed his hands and wanted to get through the last question he asked. "Her deskmate is Chiao Ran. You also know when Chiao Ran becomes vengeful. Jongwanan can dance and he is someone he can take revenge on, so you should stay away from him. As for our relationship, we are childhood sweethearts. From now on, the wedding banquet is yours. Okay, you kid, you just won at the starting line. I'm even thinking about the wedding banquet. Why were you standing at the door of our classroom that morning? Congratulations first, but don't forget to study hard," the old man said. He said with a smile. "Let's let this topic go for a while. I hope you can solve the problem of their seats and performance on stage. I also know that I have a lot to do, but I only bother you out of concern for Anan." The old man tisk-tisked twice as if he was watching a good show and looked at Loses who with a deep look. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yoon. Chapter 273. Chapter 273. No one wants to take risks. Do you really like this little girl that much? The old man asked. Loses who nodded without hesitation. The old man smiled and said, "Okay, you are a winner in life at a young age. Teacher congratulates you again. I will take care of her more for you in the future." Loses who smiled, "You didn't try your best to stop me like other teachers, and you didn't do any psychological work. It's beyond my expectation. Some people are finished once they miss it." The old man sighed. Loses who nodded, "As for the matter of adjusting seats and getting on stage, I'll adjust the seats in a moment. As for going on stage, I still hope Jongwon can take Jiaoran on stage with him." Loses whose expression changed and he frowned. "You know that Jiaoran's legs have been weak since that incident. Even if he goes on stage, he won't do well. Moreover, they have to train together before they go on stage. He may be angry with Jongwon at any time. Pose a danger. The teacher wanted to save Jiaoran, and I thought about letting him back on the stage all night. If I hadn't thought about it carefully, I wouldn't have let him on the stage. He thought about it all night long, and decided to give Jiaoran another chance. How to save? Although he has made mistakes, he is also a victim. If it hadn't been that time that destroyed him into a useless person, then I believe that he would be shining brightly on the stage now, and he would not be in this depraved state. I want to give him a chance to go on stage again. Opportunity. Going on stage with Jongwon, Loses who looked surprised and thought it was ridiculous. Right. I don't agree. He rejected it immediately, frowned and asked seriously, "Who will be responsible if he causes harm to Jongwon? No one can bear this responsibility." "No, he won't. Teacher, I guarantee it. If he hurts Jongwon, then I will be responsible. I will bear all the responsibilities. No matter what, I will let him come out of the darkness." So Jongwon became the victim of his escape from the darkness. Loses who couldn't believe it. "That's not what I meant. Loses who interrupted him, "I'm sorry, teacher, I can't be fearless, let alone let the person I have always cherished become a sacrifice. We can't get on this stage, I'm really sorry." After speaking, Loses who bowed deeply to the old man, just like the bow he made when he received his diploma. The old man looked at his determined back and opened his mouth but did not call out his name. He knew that no one would be willing to take the risk of training with Jiaoran and performing on stage together. After all, Jiaoran's problems were there, and no one was willing to take the risk. Loses who walked out of the office with a sullen face and went to the classroom to call Jongwon. Jongwon walked out of the classroom very uncomfortable under the gaze of her classmates. As soon as she left the classroom, she exploded. "Oh my God, that's Loses who from the high school department. How do you know Jongwon? I have seen them several times. I was not sure before, but now I am sure. I'm sorry, there shouldn't be any trouble between these two people, right? Maybe. At first glance, Jongwon is definitely not a fuel-efficient lamp." He climbed up to Loses who as soon as he arrived. "Come on, I won't be afraid of biting my tongue if I say it every day." Sujiao couldn't stand it anymore and said coldly, "How dare you talk about her when you don't know anything? The key is that Jongwon is her friend, and they are really tired of living like this." The group of people were quiet for only a moment, and then another unfriendly voice said, "What does it have to do with you? What do you care about Jongwon's affairs? What nonsense are you talking about? Are you envious, jealous, and hateful? Do you understand that people are just talking nonsense?" He Chiu stood behind Sujiao and looked at the group of people coldly. End of this chapter. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yoon. Chapter 274. Chapter 274. Have you committed a crime? There was really no sound now. The atmosphere in the class became awkward for no reason, and Zhang Wanan, who was standing outside, had no idea what they were saying behind their backs. "What's wrong? How's it going?" After Zhang Wanan went out, she pulled Luz's who nervously and asked. The teacher only agreed to change the seats, but after careful consideration, he hopes that you can bring Jiaoran to the stage to help him regain his confidence. "Ah, can I?" Zhang Wanan was a little surprised, and at the same time he felt a little uneasy in his heart. "I don't know if you can do it. Anyway, I don't think it can. I refuse it for you. We won't be on this stage," Luz's who said domineeringly. He was really afraid that Jiaoran would hurt her. "Not going to school, but we have already agreed with the teacher. Can the teacher agree?" "I agreed." Zhang Wanan was speechless. "Don't worry about this matter. Class is about to start. Come in quickly," Luz's who said, and already pushed her to the door of the classroom. When Zhang Wanan entered, he turned and left. The classroom was silent when Zhang Wanan walked into the classroom. Everyone looked at her with strange eyes. Zhang Wanan unconsciously touched her face and whispered, "Is there something on my face?" Zhang Wanan returned to her seat and saw Jiaoran, who was sleeping on his stomach, and moved his chair out uncomfortably. Although she currently feels that Jiaoran is a good person, it is still scary to think about those things. The first class was an English class, taught by an old man. The head teacher walked into the classroom and looked around as soon as he stepped in. Finally, his eyes fell firmly on Zhang Wanan. Zhang Wanan was made uncomfortable by his stare, as deeply as a child who had made a mistake. Lowering her head, she wanted to find a crack in the ground and crawl in if possible. "I don't know what Luz's who said to the old man, or what the old man thinks of her now. Now open the textbook." The old man gave an order, and the sound of turning over the textbooks was heard. Amidst the noise, Zhang Wanan gradually calmed down and turned to the page he studied yesterday. Nothing happened at the end of the class. It was just a normal class. Jiaoran didn't seem to be expecting the results. He slept for the entire class and didn't wake up until the end of get out of class. "Zhang Wanan, come to the teacher's office." The old man looked at her after class. As soon as Zhang Wanan heard the old man calling her name, her legs went weak. She looked at Su Jiaojiao for help, and Su Jiaojiao helplessly spread his hands to indicate that there was nothing he could do. "Have you committed a crime?" Su Jiaojiao came over and asked in a low voice. I didn't do anything," Zhang Wanan said with a grimace. "Oh, hurry up, it might be a good thing." Su Jiaojiao patted her on the shoulder and said. "What good things can happen?" Zhang Wanan said, and walked out of the classroom with his head and brain as wilted as an eggplant beaten by frost. "What do you think about going on stage?" the old man asked, sitting there looking at Zhang Wanan. "Didn't Luz's who say he doesn't want me to come on stage? Jiaoran will hurt me." Zhang Wanan muttered softly. "Yes, Luz's who is right, but the most suitable person who can pull Jiaoran out of the abyss is you." Zhang Wanan suddenly didn't know what to say. She didn't even know she was so important and awesome. "If it doesn't work, think again. Jiaoran will rely on you. As for your safety, it will definitely be guaranteed." Zhang Wanan nodded but was somehow brainwashed by him. Then I'll tell Jiaoran and we'll go on stage together." The old man was overjoyed when he saw she agreed. Okay, I just say this to you. Teacher, I wish you and classmate Luz's who will grow old together." "Ah, you know everything? You don't want to invite the parents, right?" "My parents also know it," Zhang Wanan asked with a blushing face. End of this chapter. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yun. Chapter 275. Chapter 275. It's really bad luck for 8 lifetimes. Parents, please, as long as you don't do anything out of line, the teacher won't do anything to you, just stay together. Zhang Wanan nodded vaguely. This was different from what she thought. At least in her impression, none of the teachers were so open-minded. This was the first time she had seen this kind of thing. Zhang Wanan walked out of the office and looked across the playground. The teaching building over there was much quieter than their junior high school. She didn't know what Lu Zizhu was doing at the moment. She didn't know how she should tell Lu Zizhu that she had agreed to bring Jiao Ran on stage, even though she was still a little scared to face Jiao Ran. Sighed and turned back to the classroom. Jiao Ran was still lying down and couldn't see his face. Zhang Wanan thought he hadn't woken up yet, but when he sat down, Jiao Ran slowly raised his head. Actually, if you take a closer look at Jiao Ran's face, it's pretty good looking. If his legs were fine, then his appearance and strength would definitely shine. If you want to hate him, just hate him for being so ruthless and vengeful. That man is really cruel. Does the teacher allow me to play? He asked, looking at Zhang Wanan with bright eyes, full of expectation. Zhang Wanan unconsciously pulled up the stool again, but fortunately Jiao Ran didn't notice anything wrong with her. Agreed, we will train together from now on, please take care of me, Zhang Wanan said nervously, clasping the corner of the table with her hands. Jiao Ran breathed an obvious sigh of relief and lay down on the back of his chair. I thought the teacher would not agree. I am very happy that he is willing to give me this opportunity. I am also very happy to be able to train with you. I will let you go in the future, let's work hard together. He spoke so well that Zhang Wanan could not feel his other side. Zhang Wanan just smiled. In the afternoon, the head teacher helped them change their seats. Zhang Wanan sat with a quiet little girl, and Jiao Ran sat with a boy. Zhang Wanan was well aware of this, and Jiao Ran had no doubts about it. He just thought it was a simple fine-tuning, because it was not just the two of them who had been replaced, but also some other classmates. This is also a strategy of the teacher. If it were just the two of them, Jiao Ran would definitely become suspicious. He Chiao looked at the people who were changing positions one after another with sad faces. He looked at his current deskmate and then at Su Xiao, who walked to the side of the class teacher. Teacher, could you please change my seat? He smiled and rubbed his hands in an inexplicable way. Why did you change seats? Who do you want to follow? The head teacher looked at the seat he had just changed with satisfaction on the podium with his hands behind his back. Su Xiao, we were classmates in elementary school. The key is that I often tutor her after school. If I also tutor her in class, the effect will definitely be better. You can see how stupid she is. Without me, her grades would definitely drop. He Chiao frowned and said in disgust. At the same time, Su Xiao sneezed, and then her eyes drifted to the podium, fixed on He Chiao, who was whispering to the class teacher. So that afternoon, the head teacher believed He Chiao's lies and replaced the two of them at the same table. Su Xiao reluctantly sat back next to He Chiao with her school bag in her arms. He Chiao looked at her with a smile. Su Xiao just rolled her eyes at him and muttered in a low voice, annoying. Aren't you happy being my desk mate? You are really unlucky for 8 lifetimes, Su Xiao lay on the table angrily. She only thought it was the teacher who adjusted it herself. She had no idea that it was He Chiao who went to the teacher to talk to her. Asterisk. That day after school, Zhang Wanan didn't know how to tell Lu Zizhu about her promise to the teacher again. As she walked on the road, she hooked Lu Zizhu's little finger and looked around. Lu Zizhu couldn't stand the way she tilted her head to the left and the right but didn't look at him. He stopped and Zhang Wanan also stopped. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yun. Chapter 276. Chapter 276 Narcissist. Lu Zizhu reached out and held Zhang Wanan's face, forcing her to look at him and asking, what are you looking at? No, Zhang Wanan avoided his gaze guiltily. Loses who squinted at her and asked, "No? It's obvious. Are you looking at someone?" Jongwanan smiled, "There is no one who can compare with you." Loses who snorted arrogantly and took her hand and continued walking, "That's right. Since I'm so good looking, you shouldn't look at me blindly." Narcissist. Jongwanan was not able to confess and be lenient until he returned home. In addition, the three adults came back today, and the atmosphere suddenly changed, so the matter was quickly forgotten by Jongwanan. In addition, Loses who didn't mention this matter, so Jongwanan didn't dare to tell Loses who until the training started, and Loses who was kept in the dark. At noon on the first day of training, Jongwanan and Xiaoran were talking and laughing along the way. They went to the rehearsal room very early, where they were the only two people. As soon as he entered the big classroom, Xiaoran saw the big mirror, which brought back memories, and he danced in front of the mirror unconsciously. Even though he had some problems with his legs and couldn't dance very neatly, when he faced the mirror, he couldn't dance very neatly. He is still very confident, not at all like he was in the classroom. Jongwanan looked at him and suddenly felt that he was really a good young man. If his leg was not injured. Jongwanan was watching on the side, and suddenly there were footsteps outside again. Jongwanan was startled, thinking that Loses who must have discovered it so quickly, right? This is just the first rehearsal. She couldn't help but move in and out, and finally moved herself into the corner and covered her face, just like when she was a child playing hide and seek, thinking that she would not be found. "What are you doing?" Xiaoran was happy. Seeing her like this, he couldn't help but stop and lean over to ask. Jongwanan signaled him to stop talking. Xiaoran was confused until the footsteps outside were getting closer and closer. Xiaoran turned around when he heard the footsteps. He was startled when he saw the person clearly and shouted quickly, "Hello, teacher, why do you have time to come here? As the representatives of our class, of course I have to come over to see you and take care of you. How do you think? Is it okay?" the old man asked. Hearing this familiar voice, Jongwanan popped his head out from behind Xiaoran. "Old teacher. What? You saw me and didn't welcome you? Why did you hide it?" Jongwanan smiled awkwardly and muttered in a low voice, "I thought it was him." "Okay, you two can practice. I won't be in the way here, right?" the old man said and sat to one side, crossing his legs to see if he was in a good posture. "No, no, no, look," Jongwanan said hurriedly. "That's good. Since it's not in the way, I will come here every day. As long as I have nothing to do, I will not be absent. I will be your first audience first. You can practice." The old man stretched out his hand to make a gesture of invitation. "Okay, Jongwanan, let's do it together," Xiaoran called out to the dazed Jongwanan with a bright smile. Jongwanan came to his senses, nodded and followed him to the center of the rehearsal room. Jongwanan knew why the old man came. This was the safety guarantee he said he would give her. It had to be said that the old man was really conscientious and a good and reliable class teacher. Other class teachers would take a nap if they had time at noon, but he was all "I wasted my time on these kids." The two of them first did some basic moves to find a tacit understanding, and then they started to officially start after choosing a song. At first, Jongwanan wasn't used to the intimate movements between the two of them, so she felt stiff all over, but as time went on, she relaxed and even became less disgusted. Xiaoran's skills have always been there, so even if his legs are like that, he can practice them without any difficulty, and he even patiently helps Jongwanan adjust his movements. End of this chapter. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yoon. Chapter 277. Chapter 277, Your love brother is here to find you. The practice this afternoon was pretty good, and the two of them gradually developed a tacit understanding, but some areas still require more practice. After practicing, Zhang Wanan sat down on the ground tiredly. Xiao Ran saw her sitting down and followed suit. How is it okay, he asked. Zhang Wanan looked into his deep eyes and felt that he shouldn't be tortured. He was such a gentle and kind person. What's wrong with you, he asked again when Zhang Wanan didn't speak. Oh, it's okay, I think it's okay, but I'm a little behind. Hearing what she said, Xiao Ran straightened his legs and squeezed a few times with a wry smile and said, I am the one holding me back. I am very grateful to the teacher for giving me this opportunity, and I am also very grateful that you don't mind me and let me play. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't know what to perform. Zhang Wanan smiled. The two people were talking. The old man came in with 2 bottles of water and divided 1 bottle into each other. He smiled and asked, what are you talking about? Say hello. Zhang Wanan raised her head and smiled at the old man. The old man said, Tisk, Tisk, you kids now just don't say the teacher is bad. I'll be thankful if you say I'm good. But you are so kind. Zhang Wanan's eyes were sincere, without any hint of flattery. The old man nodded with a smile and sat aside, drink some water and let's go back to class. After resting for a while, the 3 of them returned to the teaching building one after the other. On the way back, Zhang Wanan had sharp eyes. She turned around and saw a tall figure over there. When she took a closer look, it was none other than Lu Zizhu. Without saying a word, he ran away so fast that the 2 people next to him didn't even react. Xiao Ran glanced at the escaping person and felt confused. The old man was even more confused. The 2 of them just blinked and watched her run away. When her back disappeared, the old man muttered, this girl still has some strength and can run very fast. She is the candidate for the sports meeting. Xiao Ran. Zhang Wanan ran into the classroom out of breath. As soon as she sat down, Su Jiao came over and patted her. Your love brother came to see you just now, she said with a wink. Ah! What did you say? Zhang Wanan looked at her nervously before he even had time to breathe. Su Jiao said with a task, you are going to die. I accidentally sold you. After he found out, he left with a sullen face. Ah! Su Jiao? I'll strangle you to death. Zhang Wanan jumped up from the chair excitedly and went to pinch Su Jiao's neck. Hey, brother, I'm just kidding. Su Jiao looked at her with a ferocious look as if she was about to come, and was instantly frightened. She shouted at the top of her lungs in resignation. Zhang Wanan glared at her and let her go. He Chiu, who was watching the show on the other side, slapped the table and laughed. You're going to die, He Chiu. Su Jiao did not forget to argue with He Chiu even at this time. He Chiu made a childish face at her, and Su Jiao made a fist gesture at him. You're going to scare me to death. Zhang Wanan sat back on the chair angrily. If Lu Zizhu found out, he would have to beat her up. He spent so much effort talking to the class teacher, changing seats, and persuading the teacher in other ways. He even talked about everything about the 2 of them for the sake of her safety. Out. That's love. What does the of learning Lu Zizhu's love mean? If more people find out, it will definitely affect the school atmosphere. Fortunately, their class teacher is a good person and has only support for this matter. Why did he come to see me? Zhang Wanan asked, lying on the table tiredly as she sat there. Nyo, see if there is a drink on your table. He brought it to you. He said it was brought to you by someone else. He didn't like it, so he brought it to you, Su Jiao explained, pointing to a bottle of drink on the table. Gifted by others. Male or female? Zhang Wanan quickly found the point. End of this chapter. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yun. Chapter 278. Chapter 278. You must have many suitors. Su Jiao was stunned for a moment and patted her. I don't know, but I think she must be a woman. After all, your little Zhuzi is handsome, good at studying, and popular. Zhang Wanan raised her head to look at the bottle of drink, then held it in her arms and looked at it and said, "It doesn't matter if it's a woman. Anyway, my little boatman didn't drink it but brought it to me. That's enough. If it's a gift from a woman, I think the right thing to do is to throw it into the trash can," Su Jiaojiao said and made a gesture of throwing it into the trash can. "My little boatman knows how to save money in life, doesn't he? It's a gift from someone else, and it doesn't cost any money." "We both drink differently," Zhang Wanan explained stiffly, but she felt uncomfortable in her heart. After speaking, Zhang Guanan opened it and took a big sip. She raised her hand and put the drink in front of Suji, and said domineeringly, "Drink." Sujiaojiao lowered his head and glanced at the drink brought to him, pouted and said, "Drink it yourself." Asterisk. "I came to see you at noon, why weren't you there?" Luzes who asked Zhang Guanan when school was over. "Oh, I have a stomachache and I have to go to the toilet." Zhang Xianan blurted out the words he had planned for a long time. Luzes who frowned. "Why don't you ask Sujiaojiao to accompany you when you go to the bathroom?" Zhang Guanan was stunned for a moment, then pretended to be natural and asked, "Why did you ask her to accompany you? Isn't this a common problem among you girls? You must form a clique when going to the toilet." "My stomach hurts so much that it's too late," Zhang Wanan said. Just when Luzes who was about to speak, he heard Zhang Wanan snort and then said angrily, "You know girls quite well." "What do you mean? Isn't this phenomenon very common?" "It shouldn't be because you don't understand it, right?" Luzes who asked stupidly. He Zhang Wanan lifted her legs and got into the car. Luzes who could see the displeasure on Zhang Luowen's face. He raised his legs to follow the car and squeezed Zhang Luowen's little hand, asking, "What's wrong?" Zhang Wanqing coughed a few times, crossed her legs, and asked in a classy and serious manner, "I heard that our Lu Sushan was given a drink by a fangirl." "Yes," Luzes who answered so simply that Zhang Guanan couldn't help but stare. She wanted to interrogate him for fun for a while, but she didn't expect this guy to admit it so straightforwardly. "Are you unhappy just because of this?" Luzes who asked. "I felt a little awkward when I said it because I was unhappy." Not only did Zhang Wanan feel awkward inside, but her expression when she spoke was also awkward. "So you are happy?" Luzes who asked with a smile. Zhang Wanan rolled her eyes at him and kicked him. Luzes who smiled and said hurriedly, "Didn't I give you a drink? I am diligent and thrifty." "But Sujiaja said you should throw it into the trash can, and I think you should refuse directly," Zhang Guanding said not very happily. Luzes who thought for a moment and nodded, "I understand, I won't do it next time." Actually, he would refuse anything he received from the little girl in these years, but this time the person took advantage of his distraction and pushed it to her. The girl ran fast and there were just too many people around her so she couldn't see her. Luzes who took a look at the taste of the bottle of drink and immediately thought of Zhang Guanan. She liked it? So he took it to find Zhang Guan. "Be careful next time. Don't let me see you again," Zhang Guanan warned sternly. Okay, Luzes who smiled and ruffled her hair. After a while, Zhang Guanan climbed onto Luzes who's arm and said, "You have many suitors, right?" "Huh? I don't like it anyway. I only have you in my heart." "Are you worried about something?" Luzes who knew what she was worried about just by hearing her words. No doubt he was afraid that Luzes who would abandon her, but she was the little girl he loved with all his heart. How could he abandon her so easily? He will stay with her forever. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yun. Chapter 279. Chapter 279 Operation Disc. There's nothing to worry about. Zhang Wanan lowered his head and shook his head. Don't think about random things, just study hard and love me well, Luzes who said with a smile. Um. Asterisk. Loses who discovered something was wrong with Zhang Guanan 2 days later. They had dinner together at noon that day. Zhang Guanan was eating the rice very quickly. Loses who tried to persuade her to slow down several times, but she just said The speed doesn't slow down or stop. Why are you eating so fast? Loses who asked her. This is called Operation CD, Zhang Zongan said in a slurred voice. The disc operation needs to be fast, wouldn't it be better to eat it all? Loses who said, looking at Su Jiaojiao and He Chiu. Su Jiaojiao and He Chiu looked at each other like dogs and said, yes, yes, just eat it all. Zhang Wan and Bai looked at the two of them with a blank look, picked up the dinner plates and said lightly, I'm leaving. Then the three of them walked away quickly without looking at them. Loses who watched her leave and calmly took a mouthful of food and asked, what's the matter with her? Why is she so anxious? Su Jiaojiao took a bite of the chicken leg and said to Loses who with a mouthful of oil, you don't even know, let alone us. You don't know, Loses who asked doubtfully. He Chiu shook his head, I don't know. After speaking, he handed Su Jiaojiao a tissue and said, wipe your mouth. Loses who glanced at them, picked up the plate and stood up, saying, you guys eat first. You don't have the CD yet, Su Jiaojiao said quickly. Loses who, He Chiu. Zhang Guanan walked to the rehearsal room when Loses who had just walked to the door of her classroom. Classmate, please help me call Zhang Guanan from your class. He stopped a classmate of Zhang Guanan at the door and said. The girl saw that it was Loses who called her. She blushed and looked at him with excitement. Lu, Senior Lu, she shouted shyly. If it weren't for the wall behind the little girl, she might have fainted from excitement. Please help me call Zhang Guanan, thank you, Loses who repeated again. Okay, please wait a moment. After she finished speaking, she seemed to be afraid that Loses who would run away. She stood at the door and called Zhang Guanan's name while looking at Loses who infatuatedly. Loses who completely ignored her nymphomaniac look and just waited for the person who was about to come out. She's not here, a voice came from the classroom, and Loses who heard it clearly. Then the girl came over again and said, Senior Lu, she's not here. If you need anything, come to me. I can do anything. No need, Loses who replied calmly. Then, can you leave your contact information for Senior Lu? Can we make friends? I'm sorry, I don't lack friends, Loses who said and glanced towards the classroom. Where is your girlfriend? The girl's face became redder and redder, and her face became thicker and thicker. Loses who glanced at her and said, you'd better study hard. Do you know what Zhang Guanan is busy with these days? Loses who interrupted her and asked. She's at. She just said 2 words when she was interrupted again. Loses who, why are you wandering around in front of our class again? If you miss the teacher, why don't you go to the office to find me? The old man came over at some point. Said to Loses who with a smile. Hello, teacher, the girl greeted in a panic. What are you doing? Who needs contact information? Who needs a girlfriend? Why don't you study hard? Go in, the old man said to the girl sternly. The girl raised her eyes and glanced at Loses who cautiously, then reluctantly walked into the classroom with her head turned 3 times. When the girl entered the classroom, the old man glanced at the classroom and then at Loses who. What's wrong? Are you here to flirt with girls without telling Zhang Guanan? End of this chapter. The Lu family's wife is so sweet. Author, Yun. Chapter 280. Chapter 280. I accidentally bumped into you. Loses who smiled and said, there is no teacher. The old man looked at him and said, it seems that you have been very happy in the past few years. You love to laugh. That's right. It's better if you don't keep a straight face. Loses who nodded, thinking, doesn't the little girl not like his stern face? But he still knows when to smile at whom and when to be stern. Just like the girl just now, it's right to have a straight face. Teacher, where is Zhang Guanan? Do you know where she is? Luzes who asked. In the office. I asked her to write something. If you have anything to do with her, I'll call her out. Luzes who glanced towards the office and said, since I'm in your office, I'm not worried. I'll go down first, teacher. The old man nodded, and when Luzes who walked away, he exhaled a breath, thinking that he had arrived in time, otherwise it would have been bad, and he didn't know when the little girl would tell him. It's also fortunate that Luzes who didn't go to the office to ask for someone, otherwise he wouldn't know how to call Jongwanan out. She is in the rehearsal room now. On the other side, the rehearsal room. Jongwanan was standing there asking Xiaoran to adjust her movements. Xiaoran turned her around and made her movements perfect, but suddenly Jongwanan felt her legs soften, and there was a slight pain. Jongwanan couldn't help but frown and hissed. I'm sorry, I accidentally got you. Are you okay? Xiaoran looked at her nervously. Jongwanan shook her head calmly on the surface, but in fact she was panicking inside. Remembering that Luzes who had said that he had vengeance, she felt her own heartbeat begin to accelerate, and she was a little scared. They have obviously been together for a few days, and there is nothing unusual about his training these days. He has always been conscientious to the point that she admires him. But if you think about it carefully, it was because the old man was here, but what about today? Jongwanan looked back at that seat. It was the old man's seat, but he hadn't come yet today. She gritted her teeth, closed her eyes and said, let's practice again later. My stomach hurts a little, and I want to sit for a while. Xiaoran had no objections and quickly agreed. The two of them sat on the ground. After Jongwanan sat down, she unconsciously moved away from him, waiting for the old man to save her. After sitting down, Xiaoran looked at Jongwanan's legs and asked again, are you okay? My legs went weak and I accidentally touched you. I didn't mean to. Jongwanan pinched the crook of her leg that was still aching and said, it's okay. On the surface she said she was fine, but inside she was suffering. In the past, the person she wanted to see the most was Luzes who, but at this moment the person she wanted to see the most turned out to be the old man. But if Luzes who was willing to come, that would be fine. She had already figured out that she had to confess. The worst case scenario is that he will scold you. If he is more severe, he may hit him a few times. It will be a minor matter. However, she thought that Xiaoran was definitely not as simple as accidentally touching her. He might have found the right opportunity to start hurting her. The force of the move just now was not accidental, and it was just a movement, but he circled around him over and over again several times. No dance teacher had ever done so hard before, or it could be said that there was no need to do this at all. Just one action. Just as he was thinking about the sound of footsteps coming from far and near outside the door, Jongwanan felt happy when he heard the familiar voice. The old man was here. She stood up, patted herself, and then said to Xiaoran, let's get started. I don't feel any pain anymore. Xiaoran nodded and glanced outside the door for a while before standing up. The old man came in as soon as the two of them stood still. How was your practice today? The old man asked. Pretty good, Jongwanan said with a smile, but her hand accidentally touched the crook of her leg. The old man was not stupid, he was a smart man. He quickly noticed Jongwanan's hint, so he nodded slightly to indicate that he understood. End of this chapter.